A shocking moment in front of the crowd. The famous millionaire kissed me right in front of his wife, then coldly declared, "I have to be the one to surrogate for him," turning everything upside down. "You don't have the right to refuse. Just follow my plan, and your mother will be saved." At a press conference full of pride, millionaire Victor Harlow suddenly spoke in front of his wife, Catherine, with the entire world watching. He publicly announced that Chloe, a girl from a poor background, would be the surrogate in a strategic plan to fulfill a secret need of the Harlow family. Victor Harlow, the powerful and ambitious man, once a symbol of success to the outside world, but internally harboring the wounds of a broken marriage. His heart had turned cold when he discovered Catherine's betrayal with his brother, an event that wiped away his trust in love and loyalty. Catherine Harlow, Victor's wife, not only an attractive and charming woman, but also the traitor who shattered a family. She got involved in a forbidden affair with her husband's brother, an act that caused immense harm to Victor and left a scar on her soul. Chloe, a simple girl from a place filled only with poverty and her sick mother, unexpectedly became the central figure in this complex and controversial story. She had no choice but to agree to Victor's plan for revenge, hoping that through this, her mother would be saved. Revenge plan. After discovering his wife's betrayal, Victor decided to use Chloe as a tool to retaliate against Catherine, not only to punish her but to make her suffer. He devised a sophisticated plan, from making the public announcement to handling every detail to make Catherine regret her betrayal. But unexpectedly, amidst the plots and hatred, feelings began to grow between Victor and Chloe. Beneath his cold and calculating exterior, Victor began to feel something different within himself. The true nature of the young girl, her dedication, and unconditional sacrifice for her beloved mother made him unable to help but admire her and feel a change in his heart. A cold revenge plan, or an inevitable tragedy of love. In Victor Harlow's world, everything always relied on calculation and advanced strategy. But love can come unexpectedly and change everything. Will Victor be able to overcome the hatred and mistakes of the past to find forgiveness and new happiness? Chloe will face the decision between loyalty to her mother and true love, even if it is a forbidden and painful love. In the battle of hatred and love, who will ultimately win? And will Chloe's sacrifice melt Victor's frozen heart? Or will it just be a bitter lesson for both? These questions will gradually be answered as the confrontation between revenge and love escalates, pushing them to the limits of humanity and the human heart. Chloe is not a weak person, but the truth about her current situation makes all the trust and strength she once had fragile. She cannot deny that she has been caught up in a game with no way out, where every decision is determined by those she cannot resist. Chloe has no choice but to continue moving in the spiral they have drawn for her. However, what hurts the most is the feeling of being exploited. Every time she looks into Victor's cold eyes, every time she hears Catherine's provocative words, Chloe feels like she is sinking into darkness, no longer herself. "I have no other choice, but I can't become their tool," Chloe tells herself. But the fear inside her still clings to her, impossible to cut off. She feels the cost of this, the price to be paid for her own survival. But can she continue to turn a blind eye and let herself be manipulated forever? These days are no different from an endless battle in her mind. Every decision could lead to a painful result. And Chloe knows, in the darkest moments, she could lose herself. She has to learn to live with the fear, but she cannot allow herself to become a tool for Victor and Catherine's revenge. Chloe seeks a way out, a path that helps her break free from their control without harming what remains in her life. Victor is a man who knows no mercy. He was once an emotional man, but the years of betrayal and pain turned him into a cold person, showing no leniency. Hatred is the only thing left in his heart, something he believes will help him push away all the wounds he has endured. These wounds were not only caused by his wife, but also by his own brother, someone he once trusted the most. "You are just my tool. You will help me take revenge on my wife and brother," Victor tells Chloe, his words cold and without any pity. He doesn't care about Chloe's emotions, doesn't think she could feel pain or fear. To Victor, Chloe is just a means, a tool for him to execute the revenge plan he has been nurturing for years. Every day, the hatred in Victor burns more intensely, like an unquenchable fire. He knows clearly that only revenge can make him feel alive. But will this really bring him peace, or will it just plunge him into an endless swamp? In Victor's coldness, his decisions become ruthless and merciless. He does not allow himself to be weak, does not allow himself to feel anything other than rage. And even if he loses everything, he is ready to pay the price, as long as he can carry out the revenge plan he has devised. Catherine, Victor's wife, is someone who has always been proud of herself and felt that she was the center of everything. She once had everything, beauty, power, and wealth, but everything she had built was destroyed when things began to slip away at the moment she could no longer control. At this point, Catherine cannot accept the fact that she might fail, cannot accept that Chloe could be the one who causes all this chaos, and this anger gradually overtakes her mind. She will not survive this. I will get rid of her forever, Catherine swears, her eyes filled with fury. She cannot stand the thought of another woman taking what she once had. Catherine's ego is too large, and she cannot let someone as lowly as Chloe destroy everything she has. But does Catherine truly understand what is happening around her? Catherine is not only angry because of Chloe, but also because of the weakness she feels within herself. Every step Catherine takes is haunted by the shadow of the wounds of the past. She cannot accept that, even with all the power in her hands, she is still a human being who can be defeated. And this feeling only makes the hatred within Catherine even deeper. As the revenge is carefully planned and all relationships begin to be threatened, the long-hidden secrets begin to surface. Chloe, Victor, and Catherine all have to face their own pasts. The wounds they thought had healed will reopen, and revenge is no longer just a goal, but has become a life and death battle. Each character in this story must face the truth about themselves, and the emotions they have kept hidden can no longer be contained. Chloe is no longer a weak person in the world of enemies. She begins to realize that to survive, she must find a way to deal with those who are trying to exploit her. But can she overcome the tremendous pressure from Victor and Catherine, or will she become a part of the grinding wheel that crushes everything? Victor, with his burning hatred, will have to face the price he has to pay for his revenge. The price of cruelty not only shatters those around him, but also himself. Victor must confront the question of whether revenge will truly bring him peace. And Catherine, the one in control, cannot escape her own losses. As she begins to face the truth about what she has caused, Catherine will no longer be the strong woman she once thought she was. Chloe stood by the window, the soft morning light streaming into the room. Yet inside her, the emotions were completely opposite to the calmness of the scene outside. Today was not an ordinary day. She had decided to participate in Victor's plan, even though she knew she was walking into a trap with no escape. She needed the money for her mother, and that was the only reason she couldn't refuse. But within Chloe, an unrelenting fear kept rising. She wondered, once she entered this game, would she be able to hold on to herself, or would she just become a tool in Victor's hands, a person he would never regard as human? She sighed, looking at the clock. It was time. She could no longer avoid it. When Chloe arrived at Victor's mansion, he had been waiting for a long time, his usual cold demeanor in place. The light from the headlights shone into his eyes, making his face appear even sharper and more unreadable. "Chloe, you're here," Victor said, his voice icy but with something hard to interpret in it. "Chloe, you're here," when Victor said, his voice icy but with something hard to interpret in it. "You know, you can refuse, but you also understand there's no other choice." She looked at him, her heart pounding. "I know I have no choice, but I don't think I can be your tool forever." Victor smirked, his smile cold and resolute, without a hint of warmth. "You always have a choice, Chloe. You just don't want to face the truth. If you want to save your mother, you'll have to do everything I ask. Chloe swallowed, not daring to meet his gaze. She knew she could only follow his orders. There was no way out. In another part of the mansion, Catherine sat in the living room, holding a glass of red wine but not drinking it. She quietly observed everything, her eyes not leaving the movements of Victor and Chloe. A sense of unease began to overwhelm her when she realized that Victor was treating Chloe with more familiarity than she expected. Jealousy quietly rose within Catherine, but she could do nothing but swallow the anger. Why had Victor changed? Was Chloe truly just a tool, as he said, or was there something she couldn't see clearly? When Victor returned from his conversation with Chloe, Catherine could no longer keep her cold exterior. "Victor," she called, her voice full of challenge, her eyes scrutinizing him. "What is going on between you and Chloe? She's not your replacement, is she?" Victor paused, looking straight at her, his gaze as cold as ever. "Catherine, don't make things complicated. She's just a tool, and you know that." Catherine felt anger welling up in her throat. She couldn't accept that Victor saw Chloe as just a tool. After all, there had been a shift between them. She stood up and walked toward Victor. "A tool? You really think she's just a tool?" Catherine challenged. Victor remained unmoved. "Catherine, don't be naive. She's no threat. But if you keep going like this, you'll hurt yourself." "What are you doing?" Catherine shoved her hand away from him, annoyed and frustrated. "If you think I'll let her take everything I've built with you, then you're wrong." Victor turned his back, not bothering to face her. "You'll understand. And if you don't want to lose what you have, it's best not to ask anymore." Chloe stood alone in Victor's office, feeling more lost than ever. Though she knew she couldn't change the truth, the unease inside her kept growing. She could hear Victor's footsteps drawing near. Her heart raced faster as he entered the room, his gaze stopping on her, probing. "What do you think of all this?" Victor asked, his voice showing no warmth in his eyes. Chloe looked up at him, her voice trembling. "I don't understand any of this anymore. I just want to save my mother, but I feel like I'm losing myself in all of this." Victor stepped closer to her, his eyes showing no pity. "You can't escape. You agreed to help me, and now you have to follow through. As for saving your mother, don't worry, I'll help you." Chloe bit her lip, trying not to let her emotions take over. "I know, but I don't think I can endure this forever. Everything is too complicated." Victor didn't say anything more. He just looked at her and then turned away. "Don't overthink it. You just need to follow the plan, and I don't want to hear any more about that weakness." A numbing sensation spread over Chloe. She just wanted to run away, but she knew there was no way out. And just when she thought she might find some light in this dark night, she realized that no one in this game was innocent. Everyone had their own reasons and motives, but in the end, they were all caught in a dangerous game that couldn't be stopped. Catherine watched from a distance, witnessing everything unfold. She couldn't stand seeing Victor treat Chloe this way. Though she didn't admit it, there was a doubt inside her about everything that was happening. Victor always maintained his cold demeanor, but she could feel that things were changing. As for Chloe, was she really just a tool, or was there something else she wasn't seeing? The unease kept lurking in Catherine's mind, but she still couldn't do anything except keep asking herself these questions. Meanwhile, Chloe continued to live in the trap she had chosen. The turmoil in her heart kept growing. She could endure everything, but what would be the price? And could she ever find herself again in this story? Catherine's unease grew as she realized that her control over Victor and everything around her was slipping away. Though she still maintained her cold, authoritative exterior, her heart seemed to shatter in these moments. She couldn't lose. Not in this game. As for Chloe, was she really just a tool? Or was there something else she didn't realize? These questions tormented her every night, and she had never felt herself falling into such a deep hole. Meanwhile, Chloe had no way out, and she realized that everything had spiraled beyond her control. She was slowly being sucked into a dangerous game with no way to stop it. Noon at Victor's mansion grew gloomy and tense. In the office, Catherine and Victor's brother Damien sat across from each other, their eyes full of secrecy. Both knew the situation was becoming serious. Chloe, the surrogate Victor had chosen, was no longer just a tool in his hands, but a real threat to their power. If they didn't act now, they could lose everything. Damien, with his cold face and calculating eyes, spoke first, breaking the tense silence in the room. Victor has started to change. Chloe is no longer just a tool. He's genuinely attracted to her. If we don't do something, we'll lose Victor. Catherine didn't respond immediately, her hands tightening around the wine glass in her hand. She knew that once Victor was completely swayed by Chloe, there would be nothing left to keep him. We can't let this happen. Catherine exhaled, her gaze darkening. She'll destroy everything we've built. What do we do? Damien asked, his face showing no emotion. Catherine stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the garden, as if thinking about all possibilities. She turned back, her voice full of resolve. We have to get rid of her. If we don't, we'll lose everything. Not just power, but Victor too. He won't be ours anymore. Damien smirked, his face unchanged. I'll take care of everything, but it has to be quick. Things are already going too far. Meanwhile, Victor continued with his plan, seemingly unaware of the conspiracies surrounding him. He couldn't completely deny the unexpected emotions Chloe had stirred in him. The girl he once saw as a tool now made him feel a strange attachment. This feeling was unlike anything he had experienced in past relationships. It wasn't love, as he had known it, but something powerful and uncontrollable. Victor entered the office where Chloe sat alone. His eyes rested on her, and for a moment his heart seemed to stop. He couldn't deny the change within himself. Chloe, he said, his voice low but heavy. I can't continue like this. I can't treat you the way I have before. Chloe looked up, her eyes showing doubt. She had never seen Victor like this, as if something was overtaking his mind. What do you mean? She asked, her voice tinged with confusion. Victor stepped closer to her, his face seeming to soften. I've fallen in love with you, Chloe, and I can't hide my feelings anymore. The room fell silent, only the sound of their breaths filling the space. Chloe looked at Victor, confusion flaring in her chest. She couldn't believe what he had just said. He was the one leading her into this game of revenge. How could it be love? How could he love someone like her? You can't love me, Chloe responded, her voice trembling. You're just using me, aren't you? You don't love me. Everything you do is for revenge. Victor didn't respond right away, his eyes deep and torn between reason and emotion. I don't know. Everything is not like I thought, but I can't deny this feeling. Chloe turned away, not wanting to look into his eyes anymore. She couldn't let herself be deceived again. This relationship couldn't be love. It was just a power game, and she couldn't become a pawn in someone's hands again. As Victor and Chloe's emotions became more complicated, Catherine and Damien had begun to implement their plan. All preparations were complete, and Catherine knew that if they didn't act now, they would have no chance left. The relationship between Victor and Chloe was becoming dangerous, and they couldn't let it continue. We have to act, Damien said, his voice decisive. If not, Victor will belong completely to her, and then we'll have nothing. Catherine nodded, her eyes sharpening. I know, Damien, but this time we won't let her escape. They had no time to hesitate. The plan had been laid out in detail. The two of them went outside, silently preparing to end everything. Chloe had no idea she was standing on the edge of a tragedy. While she faced her own emotions and inner conflict, the conspirators were ready to make their move. She had no idea that her seemingly peaceful life was about to be erased in the blink of an eye. Chloe stood alone in the room, looking out the window. The fear, confusion, and unease couldn't be extinguished. She didn't know how to face what was happening, not only with Victor, but with the ones plotting to push her into danger. What could she do when she had no choice left? As everything spiraled out of control, she had only one path left: face it and find a way to survive. But would she have the strength to overcome the conspiracies and complex emotions surrounding her? The afternoon settled in, the sunset turning the sky red. But within Victor's luxurious mansion, the atmosphere was heavy, as though a storm was about to break. Chloe stood in the corner of the room, still unable to believe what had just happened. She never imagined things would go this far. Though she had become a part of Victor's plan, this felt too cruel. She never thought Catherine could do something this terrible. Catherine and Damien, in their anger at the threat to their power, had lost all patience. They planned to assassinate Chloe in a way that would make it seem like an ordinary accident. Everything had been meticulously planned, leaving no trace behind, and Chloe would disappear forever. Chloe knew nothing of the dark conspiracy closing in around her. She only felt a growing unease from the past few days. Victor's strange gestures, the unusual meetings, and now the sudden silence of everyone around her. The feeling that she was being watched had become clearer than ever. Then, as she was about to step into the elevator to go up to her room, a cold chill ran down her spine when suddenly, a shadow lunged at her. At that exact moment, the hurried footsteps of Victor echoed, and he rushed into the elevator just before the doors closed. Seeing the assassin about to strike, Victor didn't hesitate for a second. He used all his agility and strength to push the attacker away.
"Chloe!"
he shouted when he saw her life was at risk. "Get back!" Victor shoved the assassin to the floor, pulling Chloe out of danger in an instant. His usual coldness was gone, replaced with concern and anger that was impossible to hide. "I won't let her die."
"Catherine!"
"You can't harm the woman I love." From a distance, Catherine, who had been observing, could hardly believe her eyes when she saw Victor act this way. This was the first time she saw him protect someone with such determination. She didn't want to believe she was losing control in this game. Jealousy and rage surged inside her, but part of it was filled with confusion. She had been so sure that Victor only saw Chloe as a pawn in his game, but now everything was changing. She quickly called Damien, who had always stood behind her to ensure this plan went smoothly.
"Damien, this can't go on."
"Chloe's death is non-negotiable. Do you understand?" However, Damien didn't have time to react before everything was exposed. The police quickly stormed into the mansion, arresting both Catherine and Damien when the assassination plot was discovered. Neither of them could do anything except look at each other in despair. The secrets they had been hiding for so long were now laid bare for all to see. From the dark schemes to manipulating everything to maintain their power, everything was now revealed. Chloe sat on the chair, trembling. She still couldn't fully comprehend what had happened. She had thought of herself only as a tool in Victor's plan, but she never expected that he truly cared for her, to the point of risking everything to save her from death. She couldn't believe that the cold, calculating man could show such powerful protection. Her emotions were in turmoil. "You really love me, but you've used me as a pawn in your game." Chloe spoke softly, her voice trembling as she tried to come to terms with it. Victor stood still, his eyes looking at Chloe with complexity. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked toward her, gently taking her hand, unlike the way he had treated others before. "Chloe, I can't explain everything with logic. I've pulled you into this game, but there hasn't been a day I haven't thought about you. I just want to protect you, even if I have to pay the price for everything." Chloe looked at him, her eyes a mix of disappointment and confusion. She couldn't help but wonder if she was falling in love, as her feelings for Victor grew deeper, despite it all starting from being used. But in this moment, she couldn't deny that a small fire was burning inside her. At the same time, Catherine and Damien were being arrested amidst the chaos. The mansion guards dragged them out, and when Victor saw Catherine being taken away, he felt a moment of regret. Not because she deserved it, but because he had once trusted her. But that trust had now collapsed. "Catherine, your game is over," Victor coldly said, his gaze devoid of any emotion. Catherine turned back, laughing bitterly. "Victor, do you think you'll survive in this game? We're all pawns. There's just a winner and a loser." She was dragged away, but her words still echoed in Victor's mind. He wasn't the loser. And Chloe, though a tool in his game, wouldn't have to pay for the mistakes others had made. He would protect her at any cost. Meanwhile, Chloe remained seated in silence, staring out the window. Everything around her seemed to change every second. She couldn't go back, but didn't know where to go in this mess. But one thing was certain. The feelings she had for Victor couldn't easily be erased. She loved him, even though he had used her as a pawn in his own game. though she didn't want to admit it, that love had crossed a boundary she couldn't control. All the secrets had been exposed, and no matter how the story ended, Chloe knew she couldn't go back. Everything had changed forever, and along with Victor, there was no turning back. The golden light from the chandelier in the living room highlighted every detail in the vast mansion. But tonight, the air in the room was heavy, dark, and tense. Victor stood in the center, his cold gaze matched by his determination. In front of him were Catherine and Damien, two people he had once loved most. All the secrets that had been hidden for so long would now be exposed in the light. With nothing left to conceal, Catherine stood motionless, unable to believe what she was hearing. Her face was pale, her hands clenched tight, but she couldn't hide the panic in her eyes. She knew Victor was not one to be easily manipulated, but the fact that he had decided to make everything public shocked her more than anything else. Damien, Victor's brother, stood beside her, his face tense. Both of them knew that this confrontation would decide everything. Victor didn't hesitate. He moved toward them, his voice cold but full of unspoken resentment. He turned to Catherine, his eyes sharp like knives. "Catherine," he began, his voice firm, "I loved you, but you betrayed me. You and Damien didn't just hurt me. You pushed me into the arms of a woman I truly love. Everything you've done isn't just betrayal. It's the price you and your family must pay." Catherine struggled to contain the anger building inside her, but she couldn't escape Victor's cold stare. Every word he said was like a knife to her heart. Damien stood beside her, panic written across his face, but he tried to maintain composure. He never imagined things would go this far, and now exposure was inevitable. "What are you saying, Victor?" Catherine said, her voice no longer as strong as before. "I didn't betray you. Everything I did was for love. Why are you doing this to me? Are you going to destroy us all?" Victor looked her dead in the eye, devoid of any emotion. "What love are you talking about? When you betrayed me with Damien? When you tried to push me into the arms of another woman? What was I to you? A tool for you to get what you wanted?" He paused for a moment, then continued with fury. Chloe, is the one I love, not you." Catherine took a step back, as if Victor's words were devastating blows, making it impossible for her to stand. Everything was too late. She looked at Damien, their eyes meeting as if searching for an escape. But in Victor's eyes, there was no mercy. "Victor, I love you," Catherine finally said, her voice now weak. "I really love you, but I can't accept this. I can't live in Chloe's shadow, feeling inferior to her forever." Victor merely sneered, his gaze devoid of sympathy. "You love me? Or do you just love the power I gave you? Don't pretend, Catherine." "The truth is too clear now. You and Damien have caused too much harm, and now everything will be exposed." Just as Victor's final words echoed, the sound of hurried footsteps outside the door grew louder, and moments later, the living room door swung open. Uniformed police officers entered, followed by journalists. They had gathered enough evidence to arrest Catherine and Damien for adultery and attempted murder. The reporters quickly pointed their cameras at them, capturing every moment. Catherine and Damien were escorted out, unable to resist. All their secrets had been exposed to the public. The evidence of Catherine's affair and the plot she had schemed with Damien were now in the open. Reporters kept asking questions, and newspapers began publishing stories, revealing truths they never imagined. "He knows everything," Damien mumbled, his voice filled with anger and disappointment. "Victor has exposed everything, and we can't escape this time." Catherine said nothing, silently walking away. Every step felt like walking into an abyss with no hope left. All she had now was regret and a sense of loss. But she knew that no matter what happened, she couldn't go back. Chloe stood by the window in Victor's room, her eyes staring outside without seeing clearly. The scene from the living room earlier still lingered in her mind. Everything had changed, not just with Victor and Catherine, but with her as well. She had become part of this game, and now she realized that she was not just a tool in Victor's hands, but also a part of a painful and guilty love story. When Victor entered the room, his eyes were sharp as knives, but there was a tenderness in them she had never seen before. He walked toward her, stopping just before speaking. "Chloe, I can't keep hiding the truth from you anymore. What I've done is for you, because I truly love you." Chloe turned to look at him, emotions swirling inside her beyond words. She never imagined she'd be standing here, facing Victor, the man she once considered everything, but also the one who had forced her to make so many sacrifices. "Victor," Chloe whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "I can't just be your tool, but I can't live without you. I love you, but this love comes with a price, doesn't it?" Victor paused, then lowered his head, as though facing an undeniable truth. "Chloe, you are not a tool, but I can't change everything that has happened. I chose you, and I won't regret it." They stood silently in the room, no more words spoken. Everything had been exposed, and now no one could change the outcome. The price of love wasn't always sacrifice, but facing the harsh truth. And no matter what, they would have to live with what they had chosen. Feelings of guilt and loss enveloped everything. A new life would begin, but would it be salvation or a tragic end? It all remained in these moments, where love and revenge intertwined, inseparable. The storm within Chloe and Victor never stopped. It was just that now, it was drawing them closer to the most important decision of their lives. The months spent submerged in revenge and manipulation had fractured their hearts. But could those deep wounds ever heal? They were faced with a final choice. Could love truly overcome hatred, betrayal, and the mistakes of the past? Chloe stood before the mirror, staring at her own reflection, her eyes vacant and unclear. She was no longer the woman who lived to support her mother, no longer the one willing to sacrifice everything for a family's salvation. She had become part of the game Victor had drawn, a pawn that, even as it stepped into the darkest corners, could never turn back. But these feelings, could they really just be a temporary bond? Could she love him? A man who had once used her, once saw her as a tool. Could he change and stop being the destroyer of all that was good in her? Everything became more complicated when Catherine and Damien were arrested. Both were sent to prison, and all their affair evidence was made public. Everyone witnessed the truth, the betrayal, and the crimes that had been hidden for so long. The judgments kept coming. The wave of public opinion hit, accompanied by criticisms and hatred. But for Chloe, the tragedy was not revenge or the bitter taste of seeing those she once trusted be dethroned, but the fear that she was no different than them, a person who once hurt others to protect herself. "Catherine and Damien will pay the price," Victor said during a meeting with Chloe. He had always been cold, but this time there was something different in his voice, a weariness and fatigue. "Everything will be fine. It'll all end with revenge. But you're different." Chloe turned to look at him, her eyes filled with confusion. "What are you saying? Is that the reason you brought me into this? So that we continue living in a never-ending wreckage?" Victor looked at her, his eyes softer than ever. "Chloe, I was wrong, but I might have to pay for my mistakes, and I don't want you to be part of that. I was so focused on revenge, on destroying those who hurt me. But now I realize, maybe I've hurt you and I can't forgive myself for that." His words made Chloe feel strange. She didn't know if she could trust these regrets, but something in Victor's eyes made her heart waver. Could they forgive what had happened? Could they start fresh, completely anew? Or had they sunk too deep in the mire of the past? Meanwhile, outside, the world kept changing. Catherine and Damien were imprisoned, facing society's condemnation. The crimes they committed could no longer be hidden, yet Catherine still couldn't accept the truth. She couldn't stand the sight of being knocked off her pedestal of power. "Victor betrayed me," she whispered, her eyes filled with fiery anger. "He will pay. I can't let Chloe, or anyone, replace me. I won't let him get away with anything." However, when faced with his decisions, Victor finally chose to give up everything. He didn't want to continue living in the past, didn't want to let hatred control everything. He knew the only thing that could save him, save them, was love, even if it meant leaving everything behind: power, revenge, and relationships that had once driven him. Victor decided to do something he never thought he would: give it all up to build a new life, a real, honest relationship with Chloe. Chloe stood in the room, her head spinning. She felt the change in Victor, the determination in his every glance. And when he came closer, gently taking her hand, he spoke with firm resolve. "Chloe, I can't change the past, but I'll do whatever it takes for us to move forward, even if it means giving up everything." Chloe looked at him, her heart torn between sympathy and skepticism. "Do you really want to start over, Victor? Can we really forget everything that has happened?" Victor didn't answer immediately. He just looked at her, nodded, and said, "I'm not sure I can forget, but I will do everything to build a new life. One where there's no revenge, no mistakes from the past, only us and the right decisions." Though these words were simple, they brought a sense of peace that Chloe had never felt before. Maybe she wouldn't easily forgive, and surely there were many things to face, but she felt that love, if it could survive all these challenges, could help them overcome it. Chloe sighed. The decision had come. She would choose love. She would choose to walk beside Victor, even though the road ahead was long and uncertain. But at least now she felt a glimmer of hope, and perhaps that was what she needed most. That day, both decided to leave it all behind, not because they had forgotten the past, but because they chose to let the past no longer control them. They chose to give up revenge, to release the feelings of anger and hurt, to build a real relationship, a life with more meaning. Despite all the opposition, despite things that couldn't be changed, they walked together on a new path, a path full of hope and forgiveness. The story of Chloe, Victor, and Catherine is not just a battle between complicated relationships, revenge, and schemes, but also a lesson about self-worth, emotional control, and the decisions we make in life. Each character in the story brings us profound experiences, reflecting the choices we encounter in our own lives. These decisions, though difficult, shape who we become and the path we will follow. The first lesson from this story is to never let yourself become a tool for someone else. Chloe was caught up in a revenge plan created by Victor, and while she had personal reasons for participating, it was clear that she wasn't respected as a person, but only as a tool in Victor's hands. This is an important lesson in real life. No matter how difficult the circumstances, no matter how convincing the reasons, you should never allow yourself to be someone else's tool. Every individual deserves respect and should not let anyone exploit them. Stand up for your self-worth and defend yourself when you feel disrespected or manipulated. Emotions are always a factor that can cloud rational thinking, and sometimes we act based on emotion instead of reason. Victor, consumed with hatred, let his emotions dictate his actions and pulled Chloe into his revenge plan. Catherine, when she noticed the closeness between Victor and Chloe, couldn't control her jealousy and anger, causing her to lose her clarity. Emotions are an essential part of life, but the key is knowing how to control them. Without control, we can make decisions that harm ourselves and others. The lesson here is that, in any situation, stay calm, think rationally before acting, because decisions made in the heat of emotion often don't lead to good outcomes. Forgiveness is not weakness, but inner strength. Though Chloe was hurt and exploited, she could still forgive Victor, not because he deserved it, but because she needed to free herself from the burden of negative emotions. Forgiveness is difficult, but it's the only way we can break free from hatred and the wounds in our hearts. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or accepting wrongdoing, but it means choosing to free yourself from the pain. Sometimes, forgiving others is the only way we can live better, with peace, and move forward without the past pulling us back. The right path is not always the easy one. Chloe faced many challenges in life, from being exploited to fighting to regain her self-worth. However, even though the path she chose wasn't easy, it helped her realize that persistence and wise choices will ultimately lead to freedom and happiness. We cannot avoid difficulties in life, but what matters is standing firm and moving forward. Every hardship is a lesson, and every challenge helps us grow. And if we remain steadfast, good things will eventually come to us. Relationships cannot be based on control, but must be founded on respect and freedom. Victor tried to control Chloe, and Catherine also sought to control Victor. But the result of control is tension, the loss of genuine affection and understanding. In any relationship, respect and giving others the freedom to grow are essential. If you love someone, let them be who they are. Don't force them to conform to your desires. True love is about understanding and accepting each other, not controlling or manipulating. Finally, this story reminds us that every decision in life comes with a price, and we must be prepared to face the consequences of the choices we make. But if we are strong, resilient, and brave, we will overcome everything. What matters is living true to ourselves, protecting our personal values, and always respecting others in every relationship. Thank you for following this story. If you found this story valuable and insightful, don't forget to like and subscribe to not miss the next stories. Leave your thoughts in the comments. We're eager to hear your feedback and share with others. And remember, you always have control over your life. You always have the right to decide and take charge of the path you will walk.